Today we're going to take a look at the 2022 Honda FourTrax Rancher 420 4x4. We'll talk about some of its specs and features that set this, Honda's cheapest four-wheel drive ATV, apart from the rest of the 33 different Rancher models in the lineup and what changed for this year. Plus, we'll briefly cover where this Rancher fits into Honda's current ATV model lineup, which hopefully helps you in deciphering Honda's confusing ATV models, and we'll start it up so you can hear what it sounds like and a lot more. But first, if you guys find any info in this video helpful, please take a second and hit the like button. Liking the video and commenting below on what you think about the Rancher and answering some of my questions throughout the video really helps with growing this channel, and YouTube's algorithm in return helps me create more videos in the future, and I really appreciate the help. Now, where does the Rancher fit into Honda's current utility ATV model lineup? Let's quickly run through them. Up first is the Recon 250 that starts at $44.99, and then we move up to the models where you start to have the option of four-wheel drive. The Rancher 420 has 8 different model variations, and they range from $55.99 to $87.99, with the model we're looking at today coming in at $65.99. Then we step up to the Foreman 520, which has 3 different models ranging from $74.99 up to $89.49. And then we move up to the Rubicon 520 lineup, which has 4 different models, and they range from $87.99 to $99.99. Then last but not least, we have the Dinosaur, also known as the Rincon 680 at $94.99 with no options to choose from. And if you're confused by all of the different Rancher models or the differences between the Foreman and Rubicon models, I recently made videos breaking down their differences and explaining their model lineups that I'll link below and in the top right corner as well. And now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into a little more info on this particular model. But first, I want to quickly cover that this unit isn't 100% stock, so we'll go over what was modified, and all of it will be linked below if you'd like more info. The factory 24-inch Maxxis tires were swapped out in favor of these 8-ply radial tires that are DOT compliant for those of you wanting to hit the streets with your Rancher. And these are made right here in the good old US of A by ITP. Then we swap out the oddball sized 11 and 12 inch stock wheel setup in favor of these 14-inch Raceline aluminum wheels that are dubbed the A92B Hostage. And you've got to love the concave action going on in the rear. But what do you guys think about this combo? Better than the factory setup? And that's it for the accessories thrown on this Rancher, so let's get into some more info on the unit itself. This Rancher's model ID is TRX420 FM1, and if you'd like to learn more about what all of those letters and numbers mean, check out my 2022 Rancher lineup explanation video where I break it all down. In short, the TRX means ATV, while the 420 is its engine size, and the F means four-wheel drive, while the M means it has a manual shift transmission, and the 1 means it has a straight axle without EPS. Its MSRP comes in at $65.99, and do you have any options to choose from other than picking between the other Rancher models? Your only options come down to colors, and you have red, a green that Honda likes to call olive, and Phantom Camo, which will tack on another $500. Now let's get into the engine and drivetrain. The Rancher has a 420cc fuel-injected and liquid-cooled wet sump single-cylinder engine with a 2-valve head. Now, you're not going to win many drag races with this 27 horsepower platform, but that's not what this was designed for at the end of the day. And this is actually pretty peppy, but if you're wanting a high horsepower screamer, none of Honda's current ATV options are going to fit the bill, if I'm being honest. Those 27 little ponies come into their stride at 6,250 RPM with 24.6 pound-feet of torque that arrives at 5,000 RPM. To say this 420 engine package has been a worthy successor to the old 350 would be an understatement, as it's been bulletproof since it was rolled out in 2007, and there was a significant performance bump back then, which of course none of us were upset by. And on that note, who else would like to see another 5 to 6 horsepower bump for the Rancher? It would be nice to see an increase, as it's been, about 15 years now? The engine is mounted longitudinally, allowing for a direct drive shaft alignment to front and rear wheels for the most drivetrain efficiency possible. It's shaft drive as well, so there's no worrying about a CVT belt slipping or the added maintenance that comes with rubber bands in the drivetrain. And helping you put that power to the ground is one of 3 different transmission options for the Rancher, and this is the manual transmission, also commonly referred to as foot shift. Now, technically it's not a full manual, but rather a semi-automatic gearbox to where all you have to do is let off the throttle and click up and down to change gears with no clutch to worry about using. Just hit the throttle and move your foot up and down, super easy. And for those of you that want less moving parts to worry about tearing up 20 years down the road like you do with some other transmission options, this is for you. It also has Honda's Trax Lock, selectable 2 to 4-wheel drive that's operated with this lever by your left knee. And keep in mind this is a torque sensing front differential. If you want a locking diff, you have to move up to the Foreman or Rubicon lineup. And when using a locking diff, it does make steering more difficult, so that's when Honda's EPS, electric power steering, can really spoil you, but I wouldn't say it's a necessity on the Ranchers by any means, but it is available while still keeping this manual gearbox and solid rear axle if that's what you're after, and it'll bump you up an additional $700 over the unit we're looking at today, while everything else stays the same. Now when it comes to maintaining this engine and drivetrain, per usual with Honda, there's not much to it as you can see here from the maintenance schedule in the owner's manual. Next up, let's get into the chassis and suspension. It has a double cradle steel frame wrapped around the engine with fully serviceable wheel bearings, pivot bushings, and ball joints, plus rubber mounts for the engine and exhaust to help reduce vibration. This model swaps out the independent rear suspension found on the 420 FA5 and 6 Rancher models in favor of a swing-arm setup with a solid rear axle, which is what you want in some circumstances, but that's a 10-minute video by itself on the pros and cons of a straight axle versus independent rear suspension, so we'll dive deeper into that at a later date. Going with this solid rear axle, you do lose some suspension travel and ground clearance compared to the IRS, as you can see here on the screen, among other measurement differences between them. You do have spring preload adjustability on all 4 corners to match your personal riding style and for the load you're carrying as well. Now when it comes to brakes, up front all Ranchers share the same disc brake setup with 190mm rotors and single piston calipers, while in the rear we head back to the 1800s for a single 160mm sealed mechanical drum brake, whereas the independent models have a disc brake in the rear. Now how much weight can this chassis hold? Well, your front racks are rated at 66 pounds, while in the rear you're looking at 133, and its towing capacity comes in at 848 pounds. Now let's bounce around the unit and touch on a few different things. As is the case with all of Honda's models, you have a pretty basic LCD gauge display, but it does pack a lot of useful info without making things confusing. You have your usual dummy lights that warn you when something is wrong, and then you have your speedometer, odometer, trip meter, hour meter, and gear position indicator. Plus, you also have a maintenance minder system that counts down each of your service intervals and pops up a wrench to remind you it's time to show her a little love. It has a 3.9 gallon fuel tank with an intake fuel pump for cooler pump operation, which helps extend its lifespan, and Honda technically doesn't advertise fuel economy numbers anymore, but the last time they released numbers in 2014, this model pulled in 39 miles per gallon. Another difference between this model and the 420 FA5 and 6 models are their seats. This model has a smaller seat that's not quite as comfortable, so keep that in mind. And how about accessories? Thankfully, Honda has shown them a little bit of love, and you have a few OEM accessories to choose from, like a recoil starter, windshield, extra storage bags, plus their new line of Pro Connect storage boxes, and baskets, bumpers, skid plates, and more. I'll throw a link down below where you can check out some of those items from Honda and some aftermarket options too. Now let's start it up, show you guys what she sounds like, and then we'll come back for a few more things. And that's the 2022 Honda Rancher 4x4. Now what did Honda change for this year? The first thing to note are the racks. They removed this little crossbar on the front and rear, and from what I've seen, not a lot of people are happy about it. Why did they do it? Do they have some new Pro Connect accessories coming that those bars would interfere with? I have no idea, but I'd love to hear the exact reasoning behind it from Honda. The only other change to the 2022 Rancher lineup comes down to pricing, with a $100 increase across the board, and we do have some color changes on select models, but this specific 420 FM1 didn't see any changes on that front, and that leads me to some questions for you guys. What do you guys think about the Rancher 420? And what do you think Honda needs to change on the Rancher to really bring it to the next level? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section, and I'll be joining in on the conversation too. Now, if you don't want to break the bank with spending over $8,000 on one of the more Cadillac-ish Rancher models and you want something a little more plain Jane, this is it. It's the most basic 4-wheel drive ATV you can buy from Honda, and one of their best sellers from my experience over the years, as a lot of people want something that will just work day in and day out. Something they don't have to worry about having too many bells and whistles on, because let's face it, even though Honda is known as one of the most reliable manufacturers on the planet, stuff goes wrong, and whether it be 5, 10, or 20 years down the road, it's no fun sitting on the side of the trail trying to fix your machine while your friends are out having fun slinging mud all over you. But for those of you that want a more basic machine like this with some creature comforts thrown in there, like we mentioned earlier, you can get this exact model but with Honda's EPS, and it has been relatively bulletproof since it was originally released on the Foreman in 2007, and then it's spread out to the other models over the coming years, except for the Rincon. Now I could ramble on for another 10 to 20 minutes about Honda's ATVs, but I'm probably boring the 5% of you left watching this, so that's a wrap for this one. If you'd like to learn more about their models, check out some of my past videos, and subscribe as we've got more on the way. Thanks again for watching and supporting all of this. I really appreciate it, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. But first, I want to take a quick second and say thank you to Southern Honda Power Sports for opening their doors to me and allowing me to come pick through their inventory for these videos. They are a massive Honda Power Sports dealer here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with tons of inventory from new Hondas to used Harleys and everything in between that they sell to people from all over the USA. So check out the link in the description below and head over to their website to see if they can save you some money on your next toy.